Earnings putting a whole lot of companies in the spotlight this week. TPS Eastern Africa posting a 23% jump in 2011 profits yesterday. And of course, this is a chain of an operator of a chain of luxury hotels, lodges and tented camps. What were market impressions of those numbers released?
Well, I think, TPS, first of all, is the only listed proxy with which to play the tourism industry in this region. They've got a well spread out portfolio of assets in Tanzania, in Kenya, Uganda, and Zanzibar. So you get a very good reflection of what's actually happening in the tourism business. Last year clearly was a strong year for tourism, most of the year before the Al-Shabaab issues came to the fore. We had a very weak currency as well. So these results were largely in line with my expectations. The share price has come about 27% lower 12 months through today. It's now trading on a P of about 10.8. It looks to me quite attractively priced. It's very well managed. The execution has been pretty much flawless for quite some time. So I think they've done enough here to keep investors interested. And I think the price has about 10 to 15% of upside potential from here.
And that in a context where you've got an economic bellwether like Nation Media as well, reporting pretty stellar numbers, posting a 31% rise in 2011 pre-tax profit. Looking at the numbers that came through there, it seems that the strategy that it's pursuing in terms of expansion into Africa and growth in its digital division specifically is paying off for the company, Aly-Khan.
Absolutely, and another strong set of results. I thought Linus Gitahi, the CEO, really has begun to inflect the earnings curve higher. I liked what I saw. Again, another broad East African franchise. The print media, the Nation newspapers, obviously their flagship asset, that continues to do well against the global trend of print media finding it quite hard going. So that's quite an interesting point. But I think they're well managed. They've got good East African real estate, media real estate, and I think they can accelerate further from here. We're in an election year. Political spending will be very high. We've had a surge in multinational entries into this region, and I think that's a rising tide for the likes of Nation.
I touched on earlier that one could potentially see this as a bellwether for the Kenyan economy. To what extent?
Yes, I think we can, and I think it's signaling to me there's an underlying resilience, and it's also signaling to me that there's an increasing growth rate, notwithstanding the noise and interference we've been seeing through 2012 and 2011.
Within that growth scenario, we've got corporate users really ramping up on their data spend, and that to the benefit of Access Kenya. Now, this is a company that we were speculating at the end of last year could be standing as a takeover target simply because its share price had come down so aggressively. Aly-Khan, quite a turnaround coming through there. To what extent does this excite you?
Well, I think, I expected this turnaround. It would have really been a red card had they not turned this thing around. The question for me is the sustainability of this rebound. Does it rebound further, or does it start flatlining from here? They're essentially in a commoditized business. They're providing internet services, and you've got a lot of people playing in that space with a lot more firepower. And I'm not entirely convinced that there is a business case for a bullish investor on this stock.
So not necessarily these numbers are going to be the catalyst to turn things around, because we know that this was one of the worst performing stocks on the Nairobi bourse last year. It fell back, 26% and hit an all-time low of 3.70 shillings back in February.
It was down 56% 12 months through yesterday. It's been the second worst performing stock at the Nairobi Stock Exchange. I think I can see it bouncing about 10%, but unless there is a takeover or some kind of activity on that front, I think it runs out of steam. My issue with it remains that I don't think they have I think they're in a commoditized business. I think you've got big players coming at them, and I think this rebound was expected, but I don't know how much further it's going to go.
In your books, does it still stand then as a takeover target, and what's the viability or possibility of that actually being realized?
Well, I think, the brothers and the father have reduced their stake. They're no longer in a majority position. I think if somebody comes with an attractive price, they have surely got to look at it. And I think, people have left it well alone, but at a $10 million market cap with a metro fiber around Nairobi, which is working well, I think it looks attractive to one of the bigger sharks in the ocean right now.
Any speculations as to who that potentially bigger shark would be?
Well, I think, it's the likes of MTN Business are in East Africa. It might look attractive to them. You've got all these corporate customers on their books. I think someone like Safaricom have previously run the slide rule over them. I'm not sure they're running it over them again, but I would have thought they might be. And then, the likes of even Airtel might find it worthwhile having a tilt at them.
Okay, so something to keep our eye out for, Aly-Khan. Of course, as I said, this has been a rumor that's been turning the molds since late last year. So we'll keep track of developments there. In the meantime, we had Athi River Mining come to the fore saying that it sees 30% profit growth in 2012, and a very different scenario for a player within the construction space in Kenya to, to players here in South Africa, where we're seeing our construction players still under severe pressure because that construction spend and growth is not happening fast enough. On that end, it seems to be a different tale that's being told.
Absolutely. I think, we're seeing above trend construction spend. The building boom, the housing boom might have slowed down because of the current interest rate structure, but we got some enormous projects in the pipeline in this region. The Lamu port is one of them. So I think, there's plenty of growth to come in this region for the cement industry. ARM, Athi River Mining, and Pradeep Panorama are very good at execution. When he predicts 30%, he'll come within 2 basis points of that from his past record. I've got no reason to disbelieve him. And don't forget, we've got a completely dysfunctional competitor in East African Portland Cement. It's in the ICU unit, and it's going to be there for a considerable space of time. So I see an improving competitive picture for Athi River Mining. And if you're going to bet on execution, you're going to bet on Athi River Mining versus Bamburi or East African Portland Cement. And that's why it trades on a premium on a PE basis.
So it's got lots to leverage off, Aly-Khan, but how much risk do you price in at the same time? Because all of this is on the basis that it resolve a dispute with the National Environmental Agency, which has ordered it to shut down a clinker plant. And if that does come to the fore, then we know that you've got the cost factor to consider, because imported clinker is certainly very expensive.
That's right. I think, I expect that to be resolved, and maybe it gives you an opportunity to buy some cheap shares if it blows up a little bit further. But, I'm confident in Athi River Mining. I've got no reason to be disavowed of that notion.
Of course, it also expects a new plant in neighboring Tanzania to come online by June, and that
Correct.
churning out an additional 2,500 tons of cement per day. In terms of its regional strategy,
That's
where are
right.
your confidence levels sitting?
Very high. I mean, there's a massive scale up going on. A big bet, as you're mentioning, has been placed on Tanzania. There's a low base effect. It's got a very progressive expansion plan, and I think it's going to be pulled off. For one, I would bet on Pradeep out of anybody, actually.